Hello and welcome to episode 50 of Generations Apart. I'm Jay.
And I'm Robbie.
And yes, as the title of the episode says, this is sadly the final episode of Generations Apart. As much as we've enjoyed the process of producing this show throughout the year, it's become increasingly difficult to balance the commitment in time around our busy day jobs. Robbie and I have decided that 50 was a good number to stop at, and so just short of a year, we are calling it a day today. So, on today's episode, we're taking a look back at our favourite moments of the show and looking ahead to what tech and gaming may have in store for us all in 2024. Let's roll that intro one more time. So, before we get into that though, and for one last time, Robbie, what's new with you?
So what's new with me this week? So I got quite a cool Christmas present, and I wonder who sent this to me. So for any of the listeners who'd listened to some of our previous episodes, especially the tech gimmicky episodes, we talked about one device in particular, which was a speaker that looks a bit like, or exactly like, in fact, a giant AirPod. For those watching on YouTube, I'm just holding it up so you can see what it looks like. And we were trying to debate whether this was a gimmick or a gift. And so Jay actually sent it over to me for Christmas. And this was my Christmas AirPod speaker gift. And actually, I've had to listen to it. And it's better than I thought it was going to be. It is better. There's not a lot of bass, I'll tell you that. There's not a lot of bass. But it's quite a cool little speaker. It definitely made everyone chuckle when I was opening it up around them, saying it kind of looks like a normal AirPod for me because I'm quite tall and big as well.
I've not considered that joke either, to be honest.
But weirdly as well, I didn't realise when we saw it on the listing, but it comes with a light. It's got a light on the bottom, so you can use it as a torch as well as a speaker.
How random.
Because why wouldn't you need a torch speaker combo that looks like an AirPod? So there you go.
I do. The reason I picked it up in the end was on that episode as we were recording it, you specifically said, and I'm not going to be able to directly quote you because I didn't write it down, something along the lines of, I wouldn't be upset if I got this for Christmas. And I
Absolutely
thought,
not.
Going to do it. It's just it was just too much fun not to do it. So
it's very cool. Yeah. It is very cool. I love it. Thank you very much.
You're most welcome.
What's new with me? It even actually comes with a carry handle as well. Little thing. I haven't managed to put it on the loop that comes with it, but yeah, it comes with a handle, so you can walk around with it in your hand.
You can walk down the street with it.
Yeah, with torch in hand, blasting
just
some tunes.
Held to ear, a bit like an old boombox. Just
yeah, why not?
No.
Why not? What's new with you then, Jay?
So I had a fairly tech-free Christmas, which is very unusual, and for one of the few Christmases in recent memory where I haven't had a game, mainly because most of the games running up to Christmas I'd already bought. So I thought
it's because you've got all the tech already as well, right?
Well, probably. So I wanted to share this with you, which was my little project over Christmas.
Oh,
so cool. It is gaming related, but it's Lego. So this is for those who aren't watching us, this is the Lego Piranha Plant from the Mario series. And which is probably not instantly recognisable for Robbie because we know he doesn't do Nintendo.
I played Mario Kart. It's on there quite a lot.
So this is, I think it's Petey Piranha, I think his name is. So I had that Lego set. It's nice. Surprisingly, it's an 18 plus Lego set.
Really?
I don't know why. It's not complicated to build.
Is it
no idea why that's an
anything?
18 plus. Nope, not really. But it's very cool. It's a little money box actually, so you can put coins in the back, and then there's a little lever. Cool. That drops the coins out when you're ready. And the instruction book, which is just out of shot here, unusually for Lego, I'm just going to try and find the right page. It actually shows you, it's got a really nice little timeline. I don't know if you can see that on camera.
Of how it's developed over time.
Yeah, so like the Piranha Plant's first appearance in 1985 in Super Mario Brothers.
Blimey.
Then it appeared again in 86 in the Lost Levels. In 1990, so it skipped Mario 2 by the looks of it and jumped to Super Mario 3. Then it was in Super Mario 64. Again, then in 2002 in Mario Sunshine. 2007 in Super Mario Galaxy. And then 2013 in Super Mario 3D World. Now, it must have appeared in other games in between then, but without having sat and read all of the text, I assume it's perhaps about how the characters evolved in those games.
Yeah, like Mario Kart, as I said, it's in a bunch of other
it's in
kind
all
of
of the
World.
Mario games, to be honest, as well. Obviously, Mario Odyssey would have been in as well. So things like that. But yeah, it's really cool. It's like a little developer interview in there, and then you've got the usual instructions. So I just thought I'd share that, as it was a little fun build that I did with the kids yesterday while they were doing their own Lego. We had basically a family Lego day.
Nice.
Because everyone had Lego for Christmas in some form, and everyone was building it. So yeah, it was good.
Nice.
So there you go. That was what's new with me.
Nice.
So let's dive into the episode. As we said at the top, this is unfortunately the last, at least scheduled weekly release of Generations Apart. We, to be honest, have surprised ourselves by managing to consistently deliver one every week for 50 weeks, which I can tell you is an undertaking. When you listen to your favourite podcasts who are on episode 4 or 500, it gives you a whole new level of respect for how hard it is to get to that point, having had to do one of these every week. And I say had to, I don't mean that in a negative way. It was a choice, and I thoroughly enjoyed doing it. But it is a time commitment, and I think the reality is for both of us, especially Robbie, who's recently changed jobs, is finding just time to squeeze this in, not just to record it, but to plan, edit, and then publish every week. Has just become a little bit too much for us to manage at the moment. So we are going to be calling it a day on a nice round number. So we thought we'd take the episode today to reflect, first of all, on some of the things that we've enjoyed most over the year, some of our favourite episodes, and just talk about those briefly, and then do some predictions for 2024, or at least discuss what we think we might see in the tech and gaming sphere. So that's the plan for today. Thank you, right from the top, in case you get no further in this episode, for listening to us throughout the year and for supporting us. But Robbie, I'm going to throw it straight over to you, first of all, for one of your favourite moments. So what sort of reflecting on this has been a highlight for you?
I'll kick it off with, I think the handful of episodes I think that we did in person was probably some of my favourite episodes, my favourite bits of the show, because we got to meet up together. It was around your birthday time as well, so it was just a cool kind of couple of days in your man cave, playing games, recording episodes, and I really enjoyed that, travelling down and kind of seeing you in person and recording. It's a completely different vibe, I think, that episode as well in person to our normal show. And also we got to try a bunch of stuff that we wouldn't be able to do before, like the game streaming, when we were streaming all the VR titles with the PSVR 2. So that was one of my favourite episodes, definitely. What about you?
I also had those on my list as well, and I even pulled them out because I was going through the episodes just to kind of reflect and remember, because at 50 and with my aging memory, you forget a lot. So I went back to have a look. So those episodes were episodes 7, 8, and 18 randomly. I think we banked one for a future week when we knew we had commitments. So it was the PSVR 2 impressions, as you said, that had just launched, and I'd got it in around my birthday at the end of February. We also did an episode on the N64 collection, which I think was the episode 18, where we went through my childhood collection of N64 games. And then we also did an episode on handheld gaming through the years, which was a lot of fun. And as you said, it was just nice to meet up, because I guess at that point, episode 7 or 8, start of the year, we hadn't really known each other that much or that well for very long. I don't think we'd really spent any time together in person, certainly not outside of the confines of our work or social groups. So yeah, it was fun. It was really good fun just to kind of get together, play some games, and hopefully even with the episodes done and dusted, we'll still find time to do that, because it was a lot of fun.
100%.
I also put down, for the cringe factor, episode 1, which is the first thing we ever recorded, which I'm sure if we went back and watched it now would be really awful.
I can't watch it.
Because we didn't know each other, frankly, very well. We hadn't really spent this amount of time talking on any kind of topic or level, and we started off, I think, with the state of VR.
Yeah.
So quite heavy straight away, and I just remember the feeling at the end of it, of nailing that episode. As bad as it might look now, going back on it, just how cool it was to have got that in the bank. Because up to that point, and people perhaps don't appreciate this, there's a lot of work that goes into just getting this stuff set up.
Yeah.
So we had to we had to find the right podcasting platform. We had to look for branding. We had to decide on the name of the show, the theme, what were our boundaries? What were the rules? What would we talk about? What wouldn't we talk about? And I think it comes across that we're maybe a little bit guarded in that first episode.
Yeah.
Because we were being very careful.
Yeah.
While we found our
and
feet.
nervous. I was very nervous.
And nervous. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I'd not personally done anything like this for quite a long time. And I know this was the first time you'd ever podcasted. So, it was all a bit new, but also, it was almost the first output from a lot of a month's worth of pre-work to get to that point. So that'll always have a sort of a spot in my favourites list, I think, just because it was the first.
Yeah. But
also because it's funny as hell to go back and watch how awkward it was. So yeah, that was another one on my list.
Nice. Well, another one on my list then, almost complete opposite because of how complicated and ambitious we became later on, is one of our more recent episodes, which I think was the music tech episode that I did, where I talked a lot about the different software and music technology things that I use to produce music and how that gets me excited. It's a passion project of mine, so obviously I was excited to talk about it anyway, but also just the setup of the musical instruments coming into the PC and recording that for the podcast, through OBS and through Discord, and so that you could hear it as well as the podcast listeners as well. It was a technical challenge that was I probably left a bit too much to the last minute. Luckily, I think we managed to pull it off, and it's still one of my favorite episodes just because of I was quite proud because it was quite a difficult one to do. I was quite proud of how that actually came out, and it's obviously a topic that I love as well.
I think you titled it "Rise of the Bedroom Musician," or something to that effect. I love that one as well because it was one of the few episodes where I had absolutely nothing to do other than just to listen and absorb knowledge, and I found it really interesting because it was like an education in a way, because it's an area of tech I know absolutely nothing about, and I know you're very good at. So I thoroughly enjoyed taking a back seat for that episode and just being educated. So yeah, I really enjoyed that one.
Yeah.
Another one, which was another fairly early on, episode 13, was the Apple versus Android episode, where I think I made the throwaway comment as a joke that all Android users were criminals because they only had Android devices because they wanted to be able to play illegal games on their device or to do things to that device it wasn't intended to do. And then you subsequently spent several weeks trying to get me cancelled for that. By bringing it up over and over again. I remember thinking that was quite funny. I think it was the first time that I think I'd said something on the podcast where I thought, ooh, that could generate some hatred in the comments. That could generate some negativity, even though it was absolutely said in jest. You know what the internet can be like. Fortunately, I don't think we have enough listeners for anyone to have picked up on it or care, because we didn't get any abuse, which was good.
Yeah.
But still, that was good fun. And I think that was the first episode, I think, where we really got to loosen up a little bit more and talk a bit more about our own thoughts and opinions, and to be a little bit more, more open, maybe a bit more real at that point, because we were less worried about what people might say or think. And I think you can see over the course of the podcast, actually, how we've relaxed into this process.
Yeah.
And how because the other thing that's worth talking about is, one of the concerns we had right up front was, how does this mix with our work lives? How does this mix with our professional lives? And we've been careful to tread the line, I think. And we never wanted to create content that was rage inducing, or that was a difficult listen, or that we're two pretty genuine guys, I think it's fair to say, and this reflects us. But there was a concern there about how we walk that line and balance it. And I think as the weeks have gone on, we've relaxed more. We've found that kind of comfort zone. We know what we can and can't say. We even got comfortable sharing it. That was sharing it with our colleagues and our networks. That's also been quite interesting for me along the way.
Yeah.
So yeah. Anyway, episode 13, I thought, was the kind of trigger point for me loosening lips a little bit and being a little bit more jovial, let's say. That was one of my other favourites.
Which brings me on to some of my favourite bits, which is a collection of Jay pissing off some audience, so some listeners. So I've got you pissing off Android fans, calling them all criminals, and then there's the calling out, I think still rightly so, the kind of rubbish looking VR game, the tennis game that you described as tennis in a box. and we had a short kind of clip of that was also posted on YouTube, which is one of our more popular ones, but as you can imagine, more for controversy than anything. We had a lot of people commenting on that one, saying that that people standing up for the game quite aggressively, which I was surprised at, because it doesn't look the best, and there are some, VR titles they've got a specific animation, I think, that looks kind of unrealistic, and that game really is almost an epitome of that, in that it looks not realistic and it doesn't look great. But I suppose
basically boiled table tennis down to tennis, haven't they? They've made tennis into table tennis because you just stand in one spot. But they're cool. Anyway,
Part two, Jay. Part two.
Here we go again. But what's funny is, as you say, that is our most commented, anything short or full episode. But like I said, I thought I very much came across as it was said in jest. It was just a joke, but it really got the backup of some VR enthusiasts who felt the need to defend it and to explain to me why the developer was so successful and their previous titles, and this was going to be great. And but interestingly, since its release, there's been a few more comments on that video from people saying, is it actually any good? And other people saying, no, it's not very good. So, yeah, that was one of our most commented. And as you say, I think it caught the attention in a way we didn't expect it to.
Yeah, I was really surprised. I thought there would be consensus around that, in that it does look a bit naff. And there's no doubt it probably is a good game to play. It's just, you have to admit, outside of VR, like just seeing it on a 2D screen, it looks not great.
It looked a bit rubbish, yeah. And to be fair to a lot of VR titles, it's hard to really appreciate the quality of those games until you're in the experience, because it is an experience. You have to be in that headset, get the 360 to really be able to sort of get absorbed in how good a title is. But some of them don't translate well to a flat screen, and I still think that tennis game does not translate well to a flat screen. However good it might be to play, it looks boring. But anyway, I guess along that theme, our kind of breakout short, or the one that we went, I'm going to put air quotes around this when I say viral, because there's degrees of viral, but it was viral for us. Was the short we posted, which I think came out of the Xbox versus the FTC episode, where it was one of the revelations was that Elder Scrolls was going to be an exclusive for Xbox. And it was something along the lines of a soundbite of me saying that, sucks to be a PlayStation fan. Now, I'm neither an Xbox or a PlayStation fanboy. I own both, and I don't consider myself in one camp or the other. But of course, everybody knows that, much like the Apple-Android conversation, the console wars is something that gets a lot of people very upset. And that episode for us did something like 3,000 views in its first few hours, which, as you said, for our shorts, which barely broke 100 most of the time, was quite a feat. And I remember the two of us texting back and forth on the day as it went from several hundred to 1,000 to 1,500 to 2,000 to 2,500, and eventually sort of slowing out at the 3,000 mark. I think both of us were kind of blown away that it had reached so many people. Now, I know that's a small number in the grand schemes of the internet, but, for our modest little podcast, it was great. And again, it had a few comments, mainly from Xbox fans this time, almost wading in. Piling on, exactly. But I thought it was quite an interesting one. Certainly, gaming opinions seemed to get the internet interested. So maybe that was a little bit clickbaity. You can see how people go down the kind of playing the algorithm rabbit hole by saying just loads of controversial stuff, right? Because it does seem to work, apparently. Our most popular content is some of Jay's hottest takes. There you go. Yeah, it's those two were very interesting. I also wanted to talk about, and I know we both thoroughly enjoyed these episodes, were the two where we invited guests to join us. So we had the first episode was around generative AI and Copilot, and we invited a member of our network, a lovely guy called Sam Smith, not the singer, and he came along. He's a Microsoft developer, and he came to talk to us about his opinions on Gen AI and Copilot at that point. Now, this was before anything had been properly revealed, or we'd seen any of this stuff in action. It was very much speculation, and it was a fantastic episode. It didn't perform that well, not least not on YouTube, although I think we did discover earlier that it is our most popular audio podcast, which
Yes.
is interesting.
Yeah.
But thoroughly enjoyed that conversation with Sam.
Me too.
He's a really lovely guy, really articulate, but also just a really interesting and intelligent guy.
Yeah.
And then we followed that up fairly shortly after episode 31 with an old friend of mine who's actually a tech influencer, ghostwriter, LinkedIn blog award winner, Neil Hughes. And he's a podcaster as well. He's into the thousands of his episodes. He does them daily on his daily Tech Talk show, which just blows my mind. Considering how much effort goes into producing one of these a week, he does 5.
Yeah.
And I thought he had some amazing insights. And again, not the most listened to episode, which is a real shame. If you haven't listened to it, it stands the test of time. It's not, go and have a listen. I would encourage you to go and have a listen, because Neil's path to his sort of influencer success is a fascinating one, and one that I know that you and I took a lot away from.
Yeah, it was a really inspiring conversation, actually. From his background to being, the full-time podcaster, tech influencer, the kind of celebrities that he's interviewed, and he's obviously very, very good at what he does. The awards he's won, it was very, very inspiring to speak to him. So, highly recommend that episode. And one of my favorite ones as well. And as well as Sam Smith, it was great to chat with him and nerd out. I mean, I'm a big Microsoft fan as well, and we probably got maybe a bit too techie in our conversation, but it was still a lot of fun just to nerd out with Sam about Microsoft.
I'll be honest, I glazed over at multiple points during that episode where I was completely lost with what they were talking about. But it was good fun. And then I guess that the other episode I'd made a note of here, and I shall say I've thoroughly enjoyed all 50. So I've enjoyed even things like the quizzes. They were good fun. I know they didn't perform overly well on the channel, but that's not what this is ever about. The gaming quiz was a good laugh. We've had some fun ones over the time. The best performing episode, which surprised me, was our PSVR 2 6 months on. So that was us reflecting on kind of, has it been a success or had it been a failure? And I had to be very honest in that episode and say that I hadn't picked the headset up, and I'd bought a few two titles just to try out some of the more recent releases before that episode. And then I'll be honest, it hasn't been off its stand since that episode. So, struggling to find motivation to get into the VR stuff, even though I now have ample space, as you can kind of see behind me on the video, to do it in. I just, for whatever reason, it just isn't calling me back in. There's too much other stuff to play. And when those windows of time come around, it's the convenience of being able to sit on a sofa and pick up a controller that appeals to me, rather than the setup process, as simple as it is for the PSVR 2. Although, a quick side story, I did try and get the MetaQuest Pro up and running the other day. I thought I'd give it a try with Steam Link. Bear in mind, it hasn't been off the dock for about 7 months. I put it on, and the right controller, sorry, I was going to call it a Joy-Con, that's not the right name, just would not sync with the headset. Just refused to pair with the headset. I tried everything that Meta have online. I went through their support channel. I've ended up sending it back for a replacement. So it just sat stagnant, done nothing, and just picked it up and refused to pair. So I'm hoping when the replacement comes that will pair correctly with the headset, and I'll be able to have a go. Because I did install Steam Link, and I got Half-Life Alyx running, but of course without the right controller I couldn't actually do anything.
Yeah.
So I was keen to see how well it runs. If it runs well on my machine, I may even try recording some of that footage, and I'll post it on my own channel at some point in the future.
That would be cool. I'd love to see that, especially the kind of delay that comes from like streaming it over the Wi-Fi. Yeah,
I mean, I haven't got the latest Wi-Fi. I think Wi-Fi 6 is what they recommend for this. But I've got decent Wi-Fi. It's only a couple of years old, my mesh setup.
Yeah.
So I think it's reasonable. But yeah, it seemed fine, and it seemed pretty good. And actually, putting the headset on, I was reminded just how good the display is in that headset.
Yeah.
I've got a friend coming over later today, actually, who's bringing his Quest 3 over to give that a go. Ooh. So I'll be interested to compare the two.
Yeah.
And see how they compare. Because the Quest 3 doesn't have OLED displays, whereas the Quest Pro does. So, does the I mean, I know the pass-through is better, but does the VR experience itself, the menus, etc., look as good in the Quest 3 as it does in the Pro?
It's the contrast.
Because I must admit, it did look,
thing, right?
It did look really good. So I am keen to give it a go. I've even looked at and priced up the magnetic full blockout.
Oh yeah.
They're about £40 now, I think. So if the right controller comes back and it works, I might be tempted to pick that up and maybe give the Quest Pro another chance.
Yeah. Well, I think with the Meta Quest 3 coming out, there's going to be a lot more apps and stuff, more excitement, more developers involved.
And they all work on the Pro. The Pro's powerful enough to run the experiences, with the exception of maybe the AR stuff. I don't know how well it'll do the augmented reality.
Yeah, that might be a little rough. Yeah. But
I mean, the pass-through wasn't bad. It's, again, it was one of those where I think I've talked about it so much now, I've talked it down in my head.
Yeah.
And then I put it on and went, oh, it's not actually that bad.
Yeah.
Anyway, so there you go.
Our most popular episode then, the episode 30, the PSVR 2, the revisiting after 6 months. I think, that's what our second episode, just looking at them now, that we really start to try and mess with the algorithm and start to do like hashtags in the title and look up other kind of similar titles that were popular as well. And 6 months on, PSVR 2 is quite a common thing that you'd see with a lot of tech reviewers and things like that. So again, another kind of interesting insight into how you can use the algorithm to get more popular. Obviously, quite a popular topic as well.
Definitely learned a lot as part of that journey, I think, as well. Yeah. There's so much more, especially to the YouTube game, that goes into the preparation and planning. Like I watched a lot of videos recently about how to catch, and the algorithm, if you want to call it that.
Yeah.
And the amount of effort that people put into naming their episodes, but there's all these hooks and different processes to try and bring people in, and different techniques that now are proven as being successful. It almost becomes an art in its own right now.
Yeah.
But it takes away from me from the passion side of creating the content, because there's so much more admin work and prep and planning that goes into the how to title and do your thumbnails, that actually the quality of the content is almost a third or fourth down the list to these hooks that you need to deliver. It's frustrating in a way.
I remember when we were researching it as well, back then, there are like third-party tools that you can use where you test whether the title that you're thinking of using is actually going to go down well on YouTube, and the specific hashtags that you should use if you put in like the topic. And also, I think there was even a thumbnail rating tool as well to see how well how eye-catching your thumbnail would be to viewers as well. So
yeah, it's difficult as well because there's a lot of conflicting opinions online. I watched, I think it was the Diary of the CEO, and he was, I think it was, what's the famous bloody YouTuber's name?
Mr. Beast.
No, one with the nose.
Oh, Casey Neistat.
Casey Neistat.
Also rude.
That's no. That's the best way I could think of describing him to you, and you got it instantly.
You're not the sunglasses with paint on.
I think he's really cool. And he was doing an interview where he was basically just saying that Mr. Beast has basically ruined YouTube because, and not having a go at Mr. Beast because he acknowledged just how clever that guy is and what a great job he's done in terms of making a business around YouTube. But for Casey, who does it for the passion of the creation, he said it's kind of ruined it because he said that now the platform is just full of Mr. Beast clones.
Yeah.
And it's completely true. If you go through your feed now, there's so many people trying to do what Mr. Beast does for that success. These sort of, and the titles and the clickbait and the thumbnails, that actually the platform is saturated with people trying to beat the algorithm.
Yeah.
And we've never, so to be fair, we've never tried that. So we've never manipulated our titles, change things to falsely get you in to watch things. And I think it's reflected probably in the reasonably poor performance of the episodes and the channel itself. But we've not tried to push it in that way. I think we've done this the right way, in my mind at least, which is we've done it for the fun and the passion and the enjoyment of creating the content, not to try and turn this into something that it was never meant to be. This was never about us trying to make a business or trying to, become YouTubers. This was a platform for hosting something that we were passionate about creating. And I think that's what's interesting to me. That's what I'm more fascinated with in terms of creating something and sharing it. I don't see YouTube as a business opportunity. Even beyond this, and we'll talk about it towards the end, I do have plans to try and maybe continue creating some form of content, but it won't be to become a YouTuber or to sort of beat the algorithm. It'll be just for the fun of doing it. And if I get a small number of people that come on that journey with me and enjoy it, that's good enough for me. And I think that's a really interesting thing that I've learned over the course of the year. is just sort of what a beast YouTube is.
Yeah.
And how much goes into creating your content beyond what you see on screen.
Yeah, it's a big machine, isn't it?
It is. Anything else you wanted to call out from a sort of reflecting perspective before we think about 2024?
The only other thing to mention was just the sheer amount of shorts of content that we had just around screwing up the intro to all of our podcasts. Like between the two of us, there's a bunch of bloopers that we had together as part of shorts. So there's some really funny ones, including me chucking a full glass of wine all over my keyboard between the intro and actually starting the podcast. So if you want to laugh, there's some more content around that for you in there as well.
I think that my favourite one of those was the talking and taking, when you just could not get the right word.
God, I did it like 7
off
times.
The script. Yeah, and just the fit of rage you were getting into trying to get that right absolutely creased me. I think that was really funny. Yeah, the outtakes. Interestingly, I think as I was watching back one of those live episodes we did together, and interesting to see how our editing styles have changed, we left it in. So one of them starts with the cock-up, and it was left in.
Yeah,
at the opening.
I think we were almost treating it like a broadcast, right? So if you were like live on air, you wouldn't just stop and start again.
Which was quite funny. Whereas, obviously the only thing we ever do try and plan in terms of the content is the opening. We always sort of script the intro, which is the only thing we ever cock up. We don't edit anything out of the actual content, except for where tech gets in our way, as it has the last few weeks, bizarrely.
Yeah.
But we don't edit anything out in terms of content. We give you everything we say, as good or as bad as it might be at times. You get both barrels. Hence the hot takes. Shall we move on then to think a bit about next year?
Yes.
And some of the things we're personally excited about and that we might see. So we've got a little list here that we can kind of rattle through, and we don't have to spend any huge amount of time on some of these if there's not much to say, but I guess we'll start with one of the more obvious things that we'll probably see next year, which we touched on a couple of episodes ago, is the PS5 Pro.
Yeah.
So we discussed the rumour mill, I don't know, earlier in the year now, several episodes ago, that a slim version and a Pro were in the offing. We now have the slim, although they're not calling it that. It's just the PS5, but it is a slimmed down version of the PS5. And I guess we'll be waiting next year to see the Pro, and again, rumours have started to circulate late in this year that think obvious statements like it'll be the most powerful console. Of course it will. But I suspect next year we'll spend a lot of time hearing about what's going to make it more powerful. What are the upgrades? Is it a bigger hard drive? Is it faster? Is it doing something? But what do you think a PS5 Pro needs to be to make it worth buying? What's a Pro got to deliver next year that the current PS5 doesn't?
It's a weird one, isn't it? Because the PS5 already is super powerful and way more powerful than the games are taking advantage of at the moment as well. So there's longevity in the current console anyway, which is, I suppose, one of the things that doesn't put me off getting a just normal PS5 console now instead of waiting until the PS5 Pro. So I don't know. It's a weird one in terms of power. What I want to know is how big could it possibly get? Because the PS5 Pro... the Pro line of the PlayStations have always been, I think, bigger than the original, usually. So
PS4 was slightly thicker, I think, but because they'd slimmed the PS4 at the same time, it looked worse than it was. But I think compared to the original PS4, it wasn't dramatically
I think it was
different.
thicker. I think it was thicker than the original
it was
PS4.
Thicker. Yeah. I don't know. I think this is really difficult because, so let's look at things you could obviously upgrade. You could do the RAM, and you're going to see some better performance potentially, but would you notice that as a gamer? You could put a bigger hard drive in it. That would be nice.
Well, you can do that anyway.
You can do that anyway, exactly. You can't make the loading speeds any faster, really, because the whole point of NVMe drives and the way that the systems are built now is that they are super fast. And I have to say, what was I playing the other day? Oh, I was playing Spider-Man 2, and there's a particular sequence in that where you're chasing Black Cat, and she's got this device for creating portals, and you're zipping through these portals, jumping across the map at speed, completely flawlessly.
Yeah.
And there's a bit where you even jump into an entirely different snowy environment before whipping back into the New York landscape. The speed at which it took you on that journey blew my mind, and that's got to be something that only these new drives can deliver.
And the RAM as well, yeah.
But then, can you do much from a graphical perspective? I mean, certainly you could push the 8K piece. And I know that PS5 already theoretically comes 8K ready out the box, but no one's really making 8K content at the moment, and 8K TVs are not kind of everywhere.
Nobody has 8K
a very
TVs,
small niche. Exactly. So, realistically, what have the pros done in the past? Well, the PS4 Pro was theoretically faster, and the PS4 Pro gave you 4K or 4K because it wasn't true 4K, where the PS4 didn't. And the Xbox did the same. Xbox One X did 4K, proper 4K, whereas the previous Xbox didn't. So you had that technological leap. What's the technological leap that the PS5 is going to make, the Pro's going to make, that the 5 doesn't have already?
Yeah.
And you're probably better placed for this because you're more into PC gaming than me. But what has happened in the PC gaming sphere in the last 3 years as a technological leap that the PS5 Pro needs to make or could make? Because I'm really struggling to understand what the big selling point here is, other than calling it powerful. But what's that fundamentally going to do to your gaming experience? What's changing?
It's a weird one, isn't it? Because I think in the PC space, what I'm seeing increasingly over the last few months and years really is that it's diminishing returns on power from some of the GPUs that you can get now. You really got to the point where a lot of games just work fine on like good enough hardware. The main thing, that the technical leap that's happened, is actually in the AI space. So with NVIDIA, it's DLSS. And AMD have got their own version. It's like an AI upscaling tools that come with their graphics cards specifically. That's the main kind of technical leap that's happened in gaming, I think, in the last couple of years. So you can have way more additional frames in a game than actually there. It has AI to fill in these frames to make it much more seamless and things like that. But again, that's an AI thing that might require the additional graphic performance. We know a lot of AI tools run on GPUs rather than kind of CPUs. But the specs I saw for the PS5 in particular was that it was intending to more than double the teraflops that was possible in the current PS5 in terms of graphical performance. And again, I'm not sure. I think it is the 8K side that they must be aiming towards, because at the moment it can do quite easily, I think, 4K 120 PS5 as far as I know, 4K graphics at 120 frames per second. 8K I think it's 8K 30 is what the current PS5 can do. 8K graphics with 30 frames per second, and that might move up to 8K at 60, which would be technically amazing. But I've seen tons of videos. It's going to be
a very niche audience that's aimed at, isn't it? Because it's going to be 500-600 quid again.
Yeah,
I assume, and then you're going to have to go out and buy, what's an 8K TV going to set you back at the moment? A couple of grand?
Ridiculous,
probably.
amounts.
I mean, I know that 4K TVs now are down to crazy cheap prices.
Yeah, if
you're happy with basics, you're not worried about OLED, etc. But I don't think 8K's there.
No,
8K's still a much pricier technology. So.
And also,
it does seem strange because that's not going to have a massive audience.
No, and I've seen a ton of videos as well that says, especially at a distance, if you sat on the couch and your TV's from across the room, you're not going to be able to tell the difference. The pixel density really only has an impact when you're close to the screen. So, like a monitor, and 4K is almost, again, it's diminishing returns going up from there. If you're kind of really close to it, but there will be some people who say that it is necessary, but. I don't know.
What would be interesting to me, and I don't know, this probably doesn't even require a massive technological upgrade, would be, as I sit now in front of my nice new shiny ultra-wide OLED display, which I've recently invested in, would be to be able to connect a console to that device and for it to be able to properly natively fill the screen. Because at the moment, if I was to plug a PS5 into this, I'm going to get a very letterbox kind of experience, 16:9, and then just loads of black void. What would be really cool, and would maybe tempt me to move my consoles to the screen from the bigger TV, would be if it could then fill the screen in the way that obviously PC gaming allows for. Now, I don't imagine that is probably outside of the realms of what the PS5 can achieve today anyway.
Yeah.
It just would need to be turned on in some way, or I don't know how that would be delivered through the gaming experience. But yeah, I don't know. I find it really difficult to understand where the PS5 Pro is going to fit in next year.
Yeah.
Because I don't feel like developers are yet squeezing the life out of these current consoles. And it's always difficult, even with the One X, because I had the One X, I didn't have the PS4 Pro. It was great because it was a bit faster. There was a handful of games that did run better, things like PUBG. absolutely needed the X because it couldn't cope on the original Xbox. But very little really felt different about that console. I don't know, it feels like some of these technological upgrades are better saved for a PS6. Just park
maybe.
it for another year or two, give me some cool accessories, give me some better games, and bring me a new console a couple of years down the line. But I don't know.
I think
Maybe
it's
there's other reasons for doing
We've talked about it in a few other episodes as well. I think it's the point about longevity. So it's 8 years cycle between kind of console generation releases
What they're
usually
saying these days, yeah.
Yeah, so PS5 to PS6 is 8 years. And so in the middle, you want something that's more powerful and gives you longevity. I think the way I think about it is the PS5 Pro is to go beyond the PS6 kind of era. It's someone who wants more power and that's going to last longer. And there's a lot of people now, we talked about it a while ago, that are still playing PlayStation 4. If they had a PlayStation 4 Pro, they'll probably last even longer. I don't know. I think it's longevity.
So that is a perfect segue to the second thing we wanted to touch on. So sticking with gaming, which is the Switch, Nintendo Switch 2, let's call it. It'll have a different name. And that kind of flies in the face of that argument, though, because the Switch itself right now is still selling very, very well. I know some family members have had the Switch for their kids this year, and this console is almost certainly being superseded next year by a new generation. But that console now is got to be 7 years old at this point.
Yeah, it is pretty old.
Or more. So, that... Yeah, I was going to say, I'm pretty sure it was something like 2016, 2017?
2017, yeah.
So 6 years old. So it'd be 7 years next year. So it's about the right sort of time. But it's been underpowered for years, but that's never been its thing.
Yeah.
So I guess I wanted to talk about this one because just to fill you in, as I know you're not a Nintendo fan, Robbie, Nintendo have a habit of doing something really well and then royally screwing up the next one that follows it. So I'll give you the examples. The NES was a big success for them. Most people think the SNES was a huge success, but it actually wasn't. I think it was less successful than the NES, which then was followed by the N64, which saw another slide down the success sphere. And then we went to the GameCube, where, again, that really underperformed. Lots of classics across all these consoles, and I love them all, by the way. But in terms of just pure sales and performance, then they had the Wii, which was a huge success.
Yep.
Massive spike. Got loads of people playing that wouldn't have had even a games console, let alone a Nintendo console, for a long, long time. Then they followed that with the Wii U, which was a confused mess of a console. Your Wii controllers worked on it, but it was a brand new thing, and it sounded like the previous one, but it wasn't an upgrade. It was a completely new beast in its own right, and it had this gamepad, and it laid the foundations for the Switch, but it sold awfully.
Yeah.
Really, really badly. And when the Switch was announced, a lot of people were like, what the hell is this? But the Switch has gone on to be hugely successful.
Yeah.
One of Nintendo's best-selling consoles, and has now replaced two market streams for them, which was their home console and their handhelds, and it's become one. And it's done incredibly well for them. The worry is, I guess, that it's sold so well. How do you now persuade people to buy a Switch 2? And what has the Switch 2 got to be? Nintendo don't typically just do a kind of hardware revision and upgrade. They normally do something a bit radical. I mean, again, we've seen evolutions of their various consoles culminate in the Switch, but what is the Switch 2 going to do differently? Will it be more of the same? Will they stick to, and perhaps what people might prefer, which is a hardware bump that can play new games but still plays all your old ones?
Yeah.
That would go down very well, I think, with a lot of people who've got a lot of titles on their Switch, both digitally and physically. Or will this be something very, very different? Will they go completely left field and come out with something completely different to surprise everyone? What do you think the Switch 2 might look like?
Well, the rumours I've seen are that if they're going to go for the same form factor, it is just going to be a spec bump. And I think that's what everyone's hoping for, to be honest. I mean, they do have a habit of shaking the boat too much and then going completely downhill with whatever they release. So, and I think maybe this is the year that Nintendo have learnt from that kind of catastrophic history of that. So they're actually just going to upgrade the kind of performance of the Switch. I've heard as well that there's going to do, because we have the Switch and the Switch OLED. I've heard that there's going to be a Switch 2 and a Switch 2 OLED, so there'll be like a more premium version of the Switch 2 as well that is supposed to come out at the same time. You'll get new Mario Kart, I think is the other one that said. Mario Kart 9 is another one that I saw on the kind of releases. And what else? Yeah, I don't know.
How does Mario Kart 9 possibly succeed? Right, I genuinely, I think Nintendo have done some fantastic stuff on the Switch. Smash Bros. Ultimate, Mario Kart 8 Deluxe with all the extra tracks and the characters and the extended pass they brought out. How do you better Mario Kart 8? Because it's already the most comprehensive. It's got tracks from generations of Mario Kart, as well as a load of original ones. It's got more characters than you could possibly ever need.
Yeah.
Surely, at least on release, Mario Kart 9 is going to be less tracks and less racers, and maybe they add to it over time. But I really don't know how that delivers. And likewise, and I know there's no plans to do a Smash Brothers anytime soon, because again, how do you follow Ultimate, which literally has every character that's ever been in Smash and new ones?
Yeah.
I just think that they've painted themselves into a corner with those two titles. Really difficult to see how they change that formula up enough to make 9 compelling, other than for the diehards. I mean, I'd buy it anyway.
Well, exactly.
And I'd buy the Switch 2. And if they do a Switch 2 and a Switch 2 OLED, I'll probably buy the OLED because I can't help myself. But, it will be interesting, won't it? And I wonder whether a Switch 2 and a Switch 2 OLED confuses the market a little bit.
Maybe. I think they're trying to... That almost mimics like what they did with the Steam Deck, right? So they've got the three different versions. One of them's the top tier, and now they've just brought out an OLED version as well. But they had the kind of tiered entry into the consoles, better storage, better screens, and so on. I think that's maybe what they're aiming for. But just on Mario Kart 9, I saw that apparently they're going to be heavily leaning on better graphical performance for Mario Kart 9, which for a game that's kind of cartoony, I'm struggling in my mind to imagine what a like super graphically intense version of Mario Kart would be like. But yeah, I guess that's what they're aiming for.
I don't know if you've seen this recently. I came across one on Twitter yesterday. There's many examples of people doing homebrew Mario or Zelda games in Unreal Engine to make it look stunning. And there's a fantastic one that someone did of Mario, which it's basically like watching the Mario movie that you're playing it.
Yeah.
It's like that visually impressive. I guess they could go down that route. They're not known for leaning into power.
Yeah.
And I do think there'll be some sort of gimmicky feature in this console somewhere. It'll be interesting though, if the Switch 2 does become a thing, I wonder how many people will be tempted to upgrade that have bought a Switch. It's got to offer something new. And I think obviously power and a sort of a suite of games that you can't play on the old devices would be welcomed.
Yeah.
And I suppose they could even go back and do, some 4K versions of Zelda, Tears of the Kingdom or something would be certainly something that would draw a lot of enthusiastic Nintendo fans in. But then, I don't know, is that technological leap enough just basically to cut off all the Switch users?
Yeah. And
go, right, now we're doing Switch 2 and all the games are going to be on that.
Well, the other thing to think of is that because it's so underpowered at the moment, I think it was about half, you can correct me on this as well, it was about halfway through the life cycle of the Switch where they start to fully support third-party games, or was that from the start?
Oh no, they were big on that from the very get-go.
Oh, okay.
They became the indie machine. A load of
that's the thing, right?
Indie lovers flocked to it
because they weren't powerful enough for things like AAA games. And I know there's a few on there, for example, like The Witcher.
Well, they've tried cloud gaming, haven't they?
They've tried cloud gaming, but I think this what they need in the Switch 2 is better support for AAA titles on the go. Because that's if you're looking at the main competition now between all the other kind of handheld consoles, you can do like AAA titles on these Switch or handheld consoles like the Steam Deck and the like the Lenovo Go and all of the other ones. I
mean, there's been long rumors of Nintendo and Microsoft having conversations, which I think a lot of people have speculated was about bringing Game Pass to the Switch.
That would be a game changer, wouldn't it?
It would be incredible because it would give Microsoft a whole new market, but it would also give Nintendo a route into the AAA games that they don't then need to build devices to support.
True.
So if their device is powered instead with super fast sort of Wi-Fi technology that can deliver streaming gaming in a more consistent way. And bear in mind, the market for Nintendo is still Japan. That's one of their biggest audiences, where Wi-Fi is very good. Public Wi-Fi is incredibly fast.
Yeah.
You could see a world where something like a Game Pass is made available to bring to you the likes of Halo, the Bethesda games, Starfield, stuff like that. Things that normally don't get ported to the Switch, but all of a sudden can be played natively through cloud gaming.
Yeah.
And then you've still got all your normal Marios and all the Nintendo things that we all love.
Mm-hmm.
It would give Xbox a whole new audience potentially of subscribers who might choose to subscribe to their platform to complement their Nintendo handheld with all these extra experiences. But it would also give Nintendo something else to lean into when it comes to a broader set of titles they could make available. Be interesting to see if they did it.
Yeah.
They'd probably prefer a tie-up with PlayStation, especially as both are Japanese companies.
True.
There's but whether that would be something they would be open to or not, I don't know.
Yeah, interesting. Especially with the project. Was it Project Q?
Yeah. Well, so you joke about that, and I know you joke that I might buy one. I haven't yet, but I'm trying to find one. Yeah, because I was it's random. I was sat playing on my phone using the Backbone in bed the other day, and actually it worked really well. I was playing Spider-Man 2. I was at home, so I'm not planning to go anywhere. My only qualms with it were that the Backbone is just a little bit too small in my hands, and the screen, even with my Pro Max, is just a little bit too small to see everything you need to see when you're gaming. I have, for the moment, set up my iPad on a mount near my bed with a PS5 controller, and that's working quite well. It's just not quite as portable, and the experience isn't quite as sort of comfortable. So I am tempted. I'm going to probably wait till they come down in price, because I do think 200's a bit steep. I think they'll drop off. They're not readily available at the moment. You can't buy them anywhere. They're sold out everywhere. There's just not enough stock.
Really?
But once they become readily available, I think the price will drop on them, because they have had mixed reviews. But I have to say, for the experience I was having, it was great. And actually, just to be able to sit and play some of my games around the house a little bit more freely, I really liked it. I quite enjoyed it. So
it is quite cool.
I am tempted, but I think maybe it needs a price drop. Maybe something like 150 would be more appealing than the sort of £200.
Yeah.
The other thing on Switch 2, just to finish off, I guess Nintendo do have a habit of they do work in console generations. That's something they've always been true to. Now, whether that will change to be more in line with PlayStation, Xbox, where we're seeing evolution rather than revolution when it comes to console cycles now, as games are transcending to generations more. I do wonder if they will do something to the hardware just to add something quirky, add something a bit different. Will we still see Joy-Cons as we see them today? Will they get a facelift and an upgrade? What will happen to some of those accessories? Because there's features in there. I think there's the IR receiver in the Switch Joy-Con that almost no games use. There's about 11 or 12 games that actually use it across the whole console. So will you see those things disappear? Will they get replaced with other novelty features or accessories to enhance the experience? It'd be interesting to see how that goes.
Yeah.
I also think they'll maybe lean into the handheld form, because I think more people play their Switches handheld than they do on TV.
Yeah.
So I think it'd be interesting to see if they lean more into handheld sort of.
It might change up some of the ergonomics a bit.
Yeah.
A bit better in your hand. Yeah.
So you added the next one to our list. So moving away from gaming, you had iPhone 16, specifically AI. So what are your thoughts there?
Yeah, so I watched a quick video the other day from Marques Brownlee, and I think he was talking about the iPhone 15, and he was saying that the iPhone 15 is now it's pretty much at its best. You've got Type-C on there, and they've kind of achieved. You're looking at it, and it feels like they've achieved all that they can achieve, really, with the phone, the kind of form factor that there is. The iPhone 16 will come out in September, and we also know that Apple are working on this new AI that they're going to have in their devices, codenamed Ajax, I think it is. And it's supposed to be a Gen AI tool that they're building, an LLM that they're focusing on. But what I've heard in some of these rumors is that the Ajax, the new AI assistant, is only going to be available in the new iPhone 16, so it's not going to be retrospective for previous devices. So that's just kind of why I brought it in here. We're going to get the new iPhone 16, but it may only come. It may come with the AI built in, which is exciting, but also only restricted to the iPhone 16 and not prior devices. And I know you made a good point about how a lot of the chips have the neural chips kind of built onto the A16 or the A17 or whichever version is at the moment, which will help the on-device kind of AI processing. And so that might be a reason why, but also, the previous iPhones, they're way more powerful than they need to be. So it feels like another kind of Apple cheeky thing that they're not bringing features that could be brought to previous devices. But there you go.
Yeah, I do think that if that comes true, it'll be because there'll be a dedicated chip that will be doing a lot of this legwork, and they do, because they lean so heavily into privacy, they're not going to want your data up and down into the cloud, all of your requests. I think there's a lot of worry around privacy and AI in general. So I think if they can deliver you an on-device sort of small language model, that can just sit natively on your device and do what Siri really struggles with at the moment in terms of meaningful, support and assistance, it could be really powerful. I've been showing a lot of friends and family over Christmas who are just not into the tech sphere, and you forget how few people. I think we're so wrapped up in the world of Gen AI and ChatGPT and all this stuff, and have been for a year now. You forget so many people just haven't experienced this stuff yet, or aren't using this stuff, or don't know the full extent of what this is or where it can go. They still see ChatGPT as this novelty thing they can get to, write stories or whatever it might be. I was telling my stepsister about it over Christmas, and I was showing her the power of the speech version of the app on ChatGPT, and just how quick it comes back with these comprehensive responses. I asked it to make up a poem about something, and it was like milliseconds, and it was there, responding, reading it out. It's just incredible. And if that's where Siri can get to, or the voice assistants in general, I think it'd be amazing. Already, I wish I could make the ChatGPT chat the default assistant on my phone. I know there's shortcuts, and we've dabbled with this in the past, but to be able to interact with it, and the way that the speech to text works on the app, it's just incredible. So if that's where our chat assistants are going, I think that's really exciting. And like you said, I'm sure our Apple will box it in to certain devices. I think it needs to be more than just the phone, though, because they're so used to everything working in an ecosystem. I feel like if it's going to work properly, it's going to need to be accessible through your watch. It's going to need to be accessible through your Mac or your iPad. Now, whether that's all powered by your phone and your phone is the hub and those devices are just your interaction points, at least for the short term, I don't know. Because I can't see everyone going out and buying a new Mac, a new iPad, a new watch, and a new phone to get these AI chips, if that's what it is.
You might.
No, well, I'll be honest, depending on how well it's implemented and where we go with all of this next year, it might be the one thing that would make me think about upgrading outside of my normal 2 to 3 year upgrade cycle. Because I've just bought the iPhone 15 Pro Max. I don't really want to change that anytime soon. But if the 16 comes out with some sort of fancy AI chip that my phone can't do, and it's meaningful and it's good, and it's co-pilots are supposed to change our world next year. If the phone implementation is as impactful, it might become a must for people in our tech sort of sphere anyway.
You might be right.
So I don't know. Apple have also got another piece of tech in the offing next year, which we're looking forward to. Just a little one. It's a relatively cheap accessory for your phone. The Apple Vision Pro, which obviously was announced at the start of this year, or early this year, and is due out next year. Where does that go? What's that going to be like, and how's that going to be received?
So I actually, yesterday I saw a little kind of post by, there's an account that I've talked about before on Instagram called Meta, with a 3 instead of an E, I think. And they posted that there's rumors that the Vision Pro mass shipments will be next week, and scheduled for February. I think that's supposed to be mass kind of production. It's probably already in the works, I imagine, actually, but it's scheduled for February. So it's early next year. We're supposed to be...
To be fair, mass shipments, it takes time to get these boats around the world. So if they're being packed off to stores, I think it's the US is getting the launch before anybody else, isn't it? So Maybe those shipments are now making their way to the US. They'll be distributed around all their stores throughout January, ready for a February launch. I mean, that could be very true.
Yeah.
February in my head still feels like a long way away, but we're already kicking off 2024.
Like 5-6 weeks now.
Yeah,
it's crazy.
Exactly.
Yeah, exciting though. Really exciting. Now we've talked a lot about it and how excited we are to see it in the wild. I've seen a few people who think it could be a PC in itself. Like you could just. I saw a review from a channel recently that said that they used to have a MacBook, and since the introduction of Final Cut Pro on the iPad, they've just ditched their MacBook and they're all on the iPad. And I think they're having similar feelings towards this, that it may end up being a powerful enough PC that you don't need anything else, which to me still feels wild. But it could have that impact on people, couldn't it?
I'd love it if it did. I think that's more than 12 to 18 months, 2 years even away, though, for me, because I just don't see people sitting in public wearing these things and that being the norm yet. And I actually think if you think about it, and I remember having these feelings about the iPhone and the iPad early doors, when you were an early adopter and you're carrying around a piece of tech which has a very public price tag, you are making yourself a target. So if you're sat in public wearing one of those headsets, doing something, anybody who knows anything about this space will know that's a $3,500 headset. And, you make yourself a target. But until they become like the iPhones are now, they're everywhere. And not that iPhones aren't very much sort of stealable devices for the wrong crowd. They're less attractive because there's so many of them in the wild now. And they're less obvious. Everyone's got one. Whereas when you're walking around with one of those things strapped to your face, you are literally painting a target on your back, which is a horrible thing to say because unfortunately that's the reality of the world we live in. But it is a consideration. The other thing as well is because the price point is so high, only the elite will be able to afford them.
True.
So I do think that what we'll find is, as powerful as I'm sure they'll be, it'll be iterations 2, 3, 4 that will really take them up to the next level. I'm really hesitant with this first drop. I'm desperate to have one. Really, really want to have one. But I've got an old iPad 1 on a shelf here. I never owned one, but it's a reminder of what happened with the iPad 1 and the iPad 2 and how quickly the iPad 1 was basically ditched and made redundant. And iPad 2 became the benchmark and what everything else kind of iterated on. Apple Watch, similar. The first Apple Watch was very much sort of feature deprived. It didn't even have onboard GPS. So a lot of what you did with that device relied on your phone. Now look at where those watches are. And it was Series 2, 3 and beyond that kind of became the standard that everything's been built on since.
Yeah.
So it does make me a little nervous that this will be, one of those, it'll come out, it'll have mixed responses from people that own them. There'll be things they like, things they don't, and then version 2 or 3 will be the one that really makes its mark.
Yeah.
Don't know. It's really difficult because if it wasn't so crazy expensive, I wouldn't be too put off, and I wouldn't worry too much about that first drop. But I do think with the price tag it's going to come with, it's just so expensive.
Yeah.
That if that isn't then something you use every day, you have spent an awful lot of money on something that's going to sit on a shelf. And I've got a few headsets in this room sat on shelves that didn't cost anywhere near that still gripe. It calls me grief to look at and go, oh, that's 500 quid that I don't use.
Yeah.
3,500 is a lot to just stick in a bag, stick in a case, get out to show your friends. So I don't know. I'll be interested. I'm desperately hoping that it's hugely successful and that the use case for it is obvious and that it's a must buy. But I feel like it's going to be niche, at least for that first 12 months.
Yeah, I'm just excited to see it out in the wild. I want to see the reviews.
I want to put one on. I want to try one.
Yeah.
Definitely want to try one. Yeah. So we talked about Vision Pro. We talked about a little bit on AI, but we didn't sort of touch more generally on Gen AI and where we think this is going next year. Because let's be honest, this year has seen incredible pace of change. I don't think when we sat in January recording I think it was episode 2, we talked about Gen AI, that we really had any idea how quick this was going to move and how all-encompassing it would become.
Yeah.
Do you see that changing next year?
I think it's just going to get even more. It's going to get even bigger, even bigger. I mean, I saw another kind of post by this Meta Instagram channel yesterday as well that said that Johnny Ive and Sam Altman are poaching Apple's best talent to build OpenAI's next-gen hardware device. And I think that title was more about the poaching than anything else. But actually, for me, what was more interesting about that was them talking about OpenAI developing hardware devices, which I wasn't aware was a thing that they were planning on doing. So again, that's the kind of merging of Gen AI with hardware. I think we're going to see a lot more as well next year, and I'm really excited for it. So we've got Apple with their Gen AI. I saw another post about how Samsung's next phone is going to be heavily focused on AI and Gen AI, I think in particular as well. And that's set to release in, I think, February, March next year. So everyone's got AI on the lips at the moment and really trying to kind of push it into their devices. So yeah, just more of the same, I think.
Do you think this is going to become the next home assistance war? Because we had obviously Google, Amazon, Apple to a lesser degree battling for your voice assistant at home, which of course itself is probably going to be a target for this technology. How will those companies respond and make those voice assistants keep up and compare with the power of these AI models? Will we see these devices in various forms flood the market, and then it'd be a case of sink or swim? Which ones rise to the top? Which ones fade away into insignificance? I mean, I'm thinking about that former Apple designer who launched the Gen AI pin not that long ago, just a few months ago, which I think had a lot of people going, "Why do I want that? It does everything my phone broadly does." But that's another one where I think, could that be the sort of thing that the Sam Altman and Johnny Ive are cooking up? I mean, I'm excited because Johnny Ive obviously was responsible for so many beloved Apple products. To have him involved in designing something that then utilizes that tech could be fascinating. But what is it? What is it that they're going to build that's going to compete? They're not going to build a phone. There's no way they're going to try and enter the phone market, surely. So
maybe?
I don't think they will. Do they want to compete with wearables? Do they want to go into the smartwatch territory and have a little AI-powered watch? Or do they do something different? Do they go for the glasses? Do they go for a wearable pin or something completely different? Because what do you need? Is this ChatGPT? Is it DALL-E 3? What are they baking into this hardware? What is it supposed to do? It's got to be AI related. Surely they're not going to go completely left field and do something weird. I don't know. It's really weird to me that those two are working together. Because as you said, what hardware do we need from OpenAI? Over and above the hardware that is already available and dominating the markets, I feel like it would be something different, something unique. Maybe it's something like the AI pin, a wearable that gives you access to an AI assistant. I could see them maybe having to go for the glasses space. Maybe that's where Johnny Ive comes in, something that you can wear on your face. Yeah. That is powered by AI to compete with Ray-Ban and Meta. I don't know. Because, of course, we'll see where their AI assistants go in the new year. Those are all set to be released early next year, aren't they? The AI Studio and the various embodied bots that they've created. Yeah.
I don't know. It's exciting.
Fascinating.
It's exciting. I love the merging of Gen AI in hardware. I just think it's like having it's just going to be more accessible ways of having an assistant, and it's more and more reminding me of Star Trek. When you've got a computer that you can just speak to anywhere you're at, and have
imagine this combined with a 3D printer.
God, yeah. Then you've got your replicator, haven't you? With start making.
So I was thinking maybe to say I want a 3D print me an X object. Be able to show something on the camera. The AI assistant interprets it, maybe uses some of the things like your LiDAR detectors and stuff like that to scan that object and immediately converts that into a high quality rendering. Because I know you can do some of this right now, but the AI becomes the intelligence that refines that into something truly usable that then just goes straight to your printer and starts printing out from anywhere in the world.
That would be wild.
Because a lot of the 3D printers now, mine's quite old, but a lot of them have got kind of tech in them that allows you to preload your resin, and it will only draw from the resin vat when it needs it, and so it's much more self-maintaining.
Yeah.
So again, you could theoretically communicate with these things from anywhere in the world, trigger things off, come back to your workshop, and then that part you printed is there and waiting for you.
I bet there's someone who's already done that. That sounds like quite a cool YouTube video kind of DIY project.
Yeah. But I think the AI stuff's going to make that more powerful.
Yeah.
The other thing I was going to touch on with AI linking to the Vision Pro and Meta is that I am fascinated by the metaverse. And I think that Gen AI is potentially the technology that we need to accelerate adoption of the metaverse, because I think being able to create assets more quickly and more affordably, to be able to build worlds with simple prompts, and to be able to imbue sort of like NPCs with personalities that feel real, will just take the metaverse to another level. We're probably lacking a bit in terms of the hardware power at the moment, which is where I hope the Vision Pro and the Meta's push with the Quest continues to take us.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'd love to see how AI supports that vision as well.
Yeah. Yeah.
Lots to look forward to next year if you're a tech nerd.
Yeah. Like us.
I noticed a couple more bits on your list, Robbie, that you'd made notes for here.
Just one more, I think. One
yeah.
more, which was just, I saw another rumor that Windows 12 is planned to be released next year. So it is going to be a fully fledged next version, but it's going to come with a subscription. Now, I don't know what that means, but it's a subscribable version of an operating system, which to me sounds like hell. But yeah, I mean, I'll include a link in the description on that one, but just a quick little tech thing that I saw for next year. But yes, everything's going subscriptions, and I kind of hate it.
I thoroughly hate it. I think we had a period of time where, let's talk about TV, streaming became the best way to consume TV and the most affordable way. And now everyone's got a streaming platform, and everything's scattered across so many different places that actually getting rid of your Sky subscription, your big, chunky, unified cost, has now just basically dispersed that cost amongst various different services who are all increasing their costs without necessarily improving their outputs. I hate subscription models.
Yeah,
Having said that, in some places I think it works, but for things that didn't have it before and don't have an obvious need to introduce it, it just feels like a dirty money-making tactic.
Yeah, agreed.
So like things like, let's talk about the iPad Final Cut. Right, I've just cancelled my subscription because I don't use it properly, but I can turn it on whenever I want. £5 a month for access to a powerful tool like that, which would otherwise previously have set you back £300 to £400, which is what I paid for Final Cut however many years ago. It seems like a more sensible way to approach those tools. Same with Adobe Creative Cloud. Although those prices are quite high still, the cost of buying those tools was prohibitive, and for people that wanted access to those services, they either had to get dodgy copies, which of course Adobe didn't want you doing, or they need to find a way of making it more affordable. Again, a monthly cost, £20 a month or whatever you're paying for some of those tools. That's what I pay for the Photoshop and Lightroom. Doesn't feel too bad because it's a spread cost. Now over the years it stacks up, but month to month it makes it more affordable. I think with Windows comes with your PC. You buy Windows, you buy a license, and you run it. You need it for your PC. Why would I need to subscribe to that when I've had regular updates and services for years now and not needed to do it?
Yeah.
And Apple, likewise, have never charged for their OS. It comes with the device, and they update it until that device is no longer able to run the update. So why would I want to subscribe? What am I getting? The only thing I could see as an argument for that, given that we know how expensive Gen AI is that if this tech is going to be laced throughout the operating system, that maybe the subscription is to power the AI within the operating system.
Yeah, that could be an interesting way to do it, couldn't it?
Because if you look at Copilot for Enterprise, at the moment it's something like £30 a user per month.
Yeah,
is what Microsoft are charging for that technology. It's a lot of money.
It is.
So they're not going to give that to consumers for free on personal devices, at least not immediately, because it's not even that they're charging it just to make their R&D costs back. It's literally paying to run the server farms, the GPUs, all the technology that's needed to power Gen AI. So that cost doesn't go away. It will get cheaper, presumably, as more of this hardware becomes more accessible. But then as the world's demand for this tech increases, the hardware's got to be there. It's got to be present to be able to support it all. So I wonder whether the subscription will be to bring AI into your operating system.
Good
Maybe
question.
it'll be something you can choose to turn on. You'll get spammed on a daily basis. Would you like to subscribe to Cortana 2.0? Whatever they call it.
Yeah.
Would you like to power your operating system with this? No, not today. Ask me again in a week. It just keeps prompting you until you eventually subscribe out of frustration. But
Maybe.
again, it depends what that costs. So another example, I do already pay for Microsoft. I have like an annual cost for my OneDrive and 365 subscription. Again, if that was all sort of drawn down into my OS and it was a subscription cost of £15 a month or whatever, I don't know that I don't think I'd feel that bad about that if it was to pay for significant cloud storage and sort of stuff that I know I need to make that experience better.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Don't know. Maybe.
Weird, isn't it? Still early leaks. Still early
Well,
leaks.
my current PC won't run Windows 11. So
Really?
he's telling me that it's not. I think it's something I need to change in the BIOS around security. Because hardware-wise, it absolutely will run it, but it refuses to upgrade.
Weird. I haven't dared upgrade. I'm still on Windows 10.
I haven't because I don't want to mess with all of the things that I now rely upon it for, because I know as soon as I upgrade it, everything's going to stop working.
Same.
So, yeah, I just don't trust it like my Apple device. If it goes, we've got an update, I'm like, yep, do it.
Yeah.
I don't trust my PC to do the same because
Me neither.
it's not as reliable. Okay, well, I think we've done why break a habit of a lifetime? We've done a great job of thoroughly exceeding the hour that we usually set ourselves. So I guess we'll bring it to a close. So that's all really for this episode and for our weekly releases. Again, thank you for hanging out with us every week. We've truly enjoyed reading all your comments and for all the feedback that you've given us over the year. Don't forget to like and subscribe on YouTube, as the show will remain available there. We may well do one-off pieces of content in the future, so you'll get notified when those go live. We will be taking the podcast down in the coming weeks, so if that's how you've been listening to us, then thank you again, and perhaps consider popping to YouTube and subscribing there for future updates. Finally, a thank you to you, Robbie, as my co-host. It was his idea to collaborate in the first place, and I've thoroughly enjoyed getting back into content creation. I'll be doing more over on my personal channel. You can find me at Jay Grice on YouTube, so feel free to pop there and give me a sub as well. I will put a link in the description below. Thank you again for spending your time with us, and we will see you again in the future.